Hello guys, and we are finally back with the practical part. So I will start with some simple example. We're gonna install the Elasticsearch and we're gonna explain some things behind it. So I will also ask you a couple of questions that you will actually use some of this to do your homeworks and learn something additionally. So I will not go in a very big complexity here because this topic can be very long and I want to keep this a little bit simpler than usual because I want to have something extra for you so you can think about it, how you can do this in the upcoming project. So if you use, you're gonna have to use log collection system. So this is gonna be some very interesting way how you can do some of these things because it's very simple and it should work right outside the box. So as you can see on the screen, I already have a terminal ready for two VMs that I've provisioned in OpenStack. So the left VM is named Elasticsearch and the right VM is called LampStack. So I will install only Apache here. You can install the entire LampStack with PHP and MariaDB or MySQL, doesn't matter. In any case, we're gonna provision the VM with Elasticsearch on the left side, and then I will not do this because I want you to do that. That's gonna be also some task for you, but I will show you what needs to be done in order to set up some sort of data collection from the remote host. So these two hosts, they are put in a same network, and you're not gonna send data through the internet, etc. So don't worry about this. I will go step by step. So we will install everything one by one, and I will show you how you can also access the browser. So what we have is one of the instances has a floating IP, which you can access through remotely. So I have an SSH access already set up through OpenStack. So I assume that you should do that. So for this exercise, you don't have to create complex clusters. You can just use one or two VMs. So it's good to have two VMs. So you can try, remote connection between the Elasticsearch and the actual beats that you're going to use to collect data. So there is a little quirk there. If you want to use the Elasticsearch, you're going to have to enable some things. I will show you approximately what, but I will not tell you everything in detail, so you can try it yourself. I think that's the best way to do something. Okay, so I'll remove the camera just to make some additional space, and I will show you around what's going on. Okay, there it goes. Right, so here we are on the Elasticsearch VM. Maybe I should use something like this to make it a little bit better for you. Right, so you can see which terminal is active. Okay. Mistake. So if we see the IP here is 172.16.0.37, and here it's going to be 16.0.38. So they are literally on the same subnet. So this is in the same VLAN, same subnet, so you don't have to worry about that. This one has a floating IP, which is not represented from the metaspace of Neutron in this virtual machine. But yeah, because it's belonging to a separate tenant, it's not the admin tenant, you will not be able to see a floating IP, but you can see that from the OpenStack horizon, so it's not a problem. Right. Okay, let me see actually what we need to do first. We should install Elasticsearch first. So to do that, I have gotten ready some stuff for you. I will upload this, so you will have this as a file. It's not a shell script. I just created this for the sake of syntax highlighting, so you can see the comments better than the rest of the stuff. So it's not gonna run. Of course, you can try to make it as a shell script, so you can install the stuff automatically, but I don't suggest that because as you can see, some of the commands here are repeating. So for example, adding a GPG key twice, you don't need to do that. You can add it once and that should do the trick. So first what you need to do is to install the apt transport HTTPS, because that's the way you need to authenticate to remote repositories for installation. There's other ways you can install this. You don't have to use this method. If you want to see that, there is a link to the installation procedures that you can find directly on the original website. So first you need to update the transport HTTPS on both hosts. So I already have this installed. Just make sure you run apt update and upgrade, so you can have the latest software, maybe a distribution upgrade as well before anything else, and reboot your VMs. This is somehow that you can ensure that you're not gonna face some incompatibilities in terms of software installation. Okay. Also make sure that you have SSH access, etc., etc. So this is assuming that you already have access to the VMs. Next is to add the GPG keys to the host where you want this installed. So you can actually add it to the both, because it's like it's the same key also for installing beats, because it doesn't matter. This is for Elasticsearch, for Logstash, so it's the same key, and more or less it's the same repository, so you don't have to worry whether you're gonna make a mistake or not. So copy both on both sides. This is added, so you can add the repository, and there it go. Oh, I'm copying the same thing. So here, yep, you can copy both on both hosts. It's on main, that's fine. So it's gonna update the repository. If there is some error, it's gonna show you in advance. Up to date, so you can just apt install Elasticsearch. Do I type this correctly? Yes. Okie dokie. So this is gonna install Elasticsearch. We're not gonna do that on this host. We're just gonna keep it. Actually, we're gonna install Apache here. Apache 2 or something else. You can install the entire LAMP stack if you want. You can connect it through, but this is just for a demonstration purpose, so no worries there. You can try to do it yourself in a more extensive way. I just want to show you how you need to install and configure Elasticsearch. So the moment you install Elasticsearch, there should be an instance where you need to run it and access it on the on its port, on its listening port. So to do this, you first need to run the service, and to run the service you can use either like systemctl or service Elasticsearch start. So this will run the Elasticsearch service, and it's gonna listen on port 9200 on localhost. So here is the idea. If you want to connect to the Elasticsearch from a different host, you need to configure this in Elasticsearch configuration file to listen to not just localhost. Or you need to set up some sort of tunnel, or any way you want. So this is something that's going to be for your homework. Now if we curl, let's say HTTP localhost 9200, you should get something like this. So this is, the return from the Elasticsearch. It shows that it's installed and it's working, it's up and running. Okay, let's install. Actually, we're gonna skip Logstash for now. I'll show you with Logstash later, because this is a separate thing. I'll just go directly with beats and Kibana. So we're gonna install Kibana now. You can use the command directly, because it uses the same repositories, so you don't have to add anything additionally than that. And also we're gonna run the service as we did with Elasticsearch, and then I'll show you how you can access the dashboard, from your local host, your laptop, or wherever you connect from to the cloud, because this is not gonna listen on the floating IP, so it listens on localhost. And I strictly discourage that you change this to the floating IP, of course, because of security reasons. We don't need additional breaches, inside the network through the cloud. So make sure you don't change this to listening on the public IP, because there is no security enabled. If you do that, you need to enable security, and I'll show you how you can do that as well. Okay, so let's start the service. We can go with systemctl, let's say, start Kibana. So if we say like this, it will show you that Kibana is running. Actually, it's not gonna tell you. If you can do with netstat and see which port it is, but I think it was 5601 if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, you can access this through dashboard. Let's curl it first. Curl HTTP localhost 5601 should return something, Well, if it doesn't return error, it means it's listening, so it has some interactive script. But let me show you something first. So this is the cloud, and this is my local PC, like my Linux host. It's called Linux. So let's open a terminal here. I'll reduce this a little bit so you can see better, like this. Okie dokie. So how can I actually access the Kibana dashboard through my browser here? You need to create a TCP tunnel for this. This is a very interesting and cheap trick you can use for lots of purposes. So I mean, this is the way it should be done. If you do it a different way, it's something most likely wrong, except if you're using VPNs. But setting up VPNs is much more complicated than using SSH. This works outside the box, and it's included in mostly every Linux distribution. Not mostly, but literally in every. So what you can do actually is you can tunnel a local port into the remote host, and then tell that remote host listens on a particular IP address or whatever you wish to achieve. Another way you can access some of the ports is by using proxying. So for example, let's say SSH, we can say -o proxy command equals SSH -big W. I'll get to this. So what we want to do is we want to say that the host that we are connecting to is going to perform a proxy action. So it's going to just redirect your SSH request towards an internal machine. So this is if you want to log in directly to some of the servers inside the network behind the host that has a public IP. This is a concept of Bastion. I have explained this in a detail when we were talking about Ansible. So in this case, you want to say that you connect to the host with the floating IP, right? So you're gonna use for that purpose your private key, and you want to go to, let's say, 172.16.0. Let's get to I don't know, this one. I mean, this is how I already connected to this host. So this is just it was 37, right? Okay, that doesn't matter. 037, and let's actually check just in case. No, it's 38. Well, doesn't matter. So what this is gonna do, it's gonna ask the host. So you connect directly to the LAMP stack server. This doesn't have floating IP or anything that you can connect through a public means. So it's literally proxying SSH request. Another thing you can do is to create a tunnel, as I mentioned before, to access the Kibana dashboard. So don't let me digress, because yeah, I can explain a lot of things in a short time. Let's try this SSH -L option. So we're tunneling a local port. You can use an option -R, but in that case, you're tunneling a remote port. So it means that you're listening here on some specific thing. Let's say you have a database running on your laptop and you want your VM to connect to your database here. So you can use the option -R and tunnel a remote port, whoever it is, into a 3306 port on your MySQL database. This is a very common trick, and it's used, also for hacking purposes to create backdoors and stuff. So this is also a very, popular way of breaching, systems and doing stuff like that in cybersecurity world. So SSH is, considered something that's not going to be blocked by a firewall, and it's people are trying to exploit any kind of weakness in this. So this is also one method how we can, break into someone's system, provided that you have the right keys, etc. So that's a different story. So we're tunneling local port. We can tunnel the same ports, doesn't matter. So let's say the local host 9200, and we say localhost 9200. What does this mean? This means that when I open the browser and I enter localhost 9200 at my local port, it's gonna open the same at the localhost 9200 on the remote host that you're gonna connect with SSH. Okay. So for example, let's say like this. I'll just open a browser and localhost. So I will do let's say 9200 like this. So it means that if I change this to I don't know, 1200, oops, like this. Now the port that your Elasticsearch is listening on the remote machine is going to be translated to 1200 here. Okay, so this is going to be your listening port at this time. But for the matter of convenience and for easier, you can translate the same port. Doesn't matter. You can use any port. If it's a Apache web server, or you can also use the same port 80 or 443 if it's for SSL. So you can have like if you're accessing the real deal there. So that's the idea here. Let's proceed with the command actually. So let me show you what else you need to do. So here you can pass a couple of other parameters like -n and -f. So what's this gonna do? This is gonna keep your connection in the background active, and it's gonna prevent you from jumping to the next host. So if you don't do this, you're gonna literally SSH to the host with the public IP. And when you turn off the window, it's going to break the SSH connection and the tunnel is going to be broken and you're not going to be able to access anything through the browser. In this case, the connection is going to be active in the background. So what we need else is to define the host where you want to access. 27, that's the host where I'm, and you're going to provide your, of course, IPRSA. This is here, I'm already root, so Kali Linux is in root by default, so the key I generated, it's there, so you use your private key. So if you do this, you have created an SSH tunnel to port 9200. So if I say, oops, mistake, it's late, SSH, and you will see what's going on. Here is the tunnel running. This is our proxy command we have, like the window on the left, this one. I mean, that's how I accessed you don't need to sign in first to this host and then to that one, it has the same public key, but this is very convenient. This is how you do things. In any case, the tunnel is running, and what we need to do is to just press here 9200 and that's it. Secure connection failed. Okay, we're using HTTPS, so we need to use here HTTP, and there it is. Elasticsearch is running on our remote host. I mean, if you try to access this before, doesn't matter that the port is opened. I have like very free policy for the sake of, you know, avoiding some errors during these presentations. The ports are opened by default, but still I won't be able to access the Elasticsearch through the public IP, because that's how it should be. That's the way things are done. And if you want to assign some specific listening IPs for a remote host, you need to do it by yourself. And this is something that you're gonna do for the homework. I'll just show you where this is done, but not how. And it's very easy, so don't worry about that. Okay, next is we're gonna create a couple of more translations for ports for Kibana, for example, let's say, to make it easier for us. So Kibana was listening on I don't remember now which one it was. 50 something it was. 5601, yeah, right. Let me check quickly. Where did I put this? Yeah, there it is. It's on a different window. I just move it around so I can have more workspace. Okay, so we can put here 5601, and we can put the same here because Kibana also listens on localhost. We create another tunnel. So if you go here, localhost 5601, and there it goes. So now what happens? You can actually do a lot of things from here. So here is one thing that you can do immediately. It says enable security. This is what you can try to see what it does. I'm gonna skip this for the time being, but if you're running stuff through the internet, you want to have things through SSL, right? You don't want to, you know, transmit open and clear text data through the internet. That's not how we do things. So this is also a way you can do a lot of things through the dashboard itself. The next thing what we need to do is to add Beats agent. So to install Beats, it's more or less the same like we did with the previous thing. So if you go down in the text, you just run apt-get update and install packet beat, or, you know, metric beat. So it doesn't matter. So let's install metric beat, for example. It uses the same repository, so you don't have to add anything separately. And we will install it on both hosts. So I'll pass the commands. There is something else you need to do. It's not just gonna work outside the box like this. You need to initiate a setup, and this is actually very cool because it's quite automated. I'll install it here as well on the other host. And yeah, let me show you some interesting thing now. So if you want to integrate this with Kibana to ship some data from the system, first you need to, you know, enable a metric beat to collect data from your system. And this is done by modules. So metric beat has a module called system. These are stored in etc modules. I mean, etc metric beat modules. You will find them there. There's a couple of different modules for the metric beat that are, you know, out of the box installed. So we will try to install the system module. I mean, just enable it. So we just say metric beat enable module system. No. Module enable system. That's how this is done. I think I have misspelled here. There it goes. Module system is already enabled. Okay, so this runs outside the box. That's very cool, actually. All right, so the next thing you need to do is to set up the metric beat to integrate with Kibana automatically, because on this host it's gonna happen outside of the box because it's on local host, and these are already configured to listen directly to localhost. That's the default configuration. You don't need to change anything. So you just run you know, metric beat setup -e. So it should find, Kibana listening. It says like loading dashboards, Kibana must be running and reachable. So it will load some primitive dashboards. You can configure this and customize it later. And I will encourage you to play with this. I'm not gonna go and, experiment with all of that here. And yeah, you can try to play with this. It's quite convenient. I'll show you in a second. If you do this here, it's not gonna find anything. I will do it in a second. So you will see what's gonna happen. Let's say metric beat setup -e. Dial TCP listens on localhost 9200. Of course, it's not gonna connect because Kibana is running on a different IP, not here. But even if you try to connect to Kibana on 5601, you won't be able from this host because Kibana is listening already on localhost. So how are you gonna do that? That's something I want you to do for the homework and to try to install. I think we're running Apache here. Are we? Yes, so we are running Apache. You can also systemctl status Apache 2. It will show you the status of the server. You can try to install MySQL and some other things, to get some more realistic scenario, but it doesn't really matter. For when it comes to your project later, that's where we're gonna demand you to configure this properly and to make it run and collect logs from remote locations. Okay, so the dashboard here is activated. So if we go to Kibana, actually on our browser, we are already there. You can check the site here. There's a lot of things. If you go to overview, it will show you, dashboards you can install for different, for Amazon. There's a lot of things, VPN, Amazon metrics, and you can, just call it out. It will, it will work just if you have the VPN running in Amazon. So the moment you install this, they're already integrated. These are like in the box dashboards. You can create your own, customize, create dashboards. There's, very, very nice and fancy dashboards supported in Kibana. So you can try this as well. Right. I don't know. Let's see what they have here. They have for Azure, Microsoft Azure, for Ceph, metric beat for Ceph. You can monitor the Ceph cluster. That's awesome. Consul, service discovery, stuff like that. You have for IBM, for Google Cloud. You can monitor Docker, ECS and stuff. Couchbase, Core DNS. Here it goes actually, but just a second, I will show you what you can do. For example, let's say you want to monitor a web server. You just press on it. It doesn't have anything, because to ship data to Kibana that has a dashboard for a web server, you're gonna need, for example, Filebeat, and Filebeat has a special a log collector and data collector for Apache, let's say, or for Nginx. So you can have, something working immediately just by installing a plugin like that. You don't have to do it yourself, to go through the configuration files and do all these things manually. So that's the great part. You have, Canvas stuff. You have, you can add your work paths. There's a lot of things here. Machine learning things. This is where Elasticsearch excels, working with big data and, importing logs and performing analysis and stuff. So there's literally endless things you can do here. Data visualizer. But let's go first to the observability. So take a look here. For example, you can install Filebeat immediately on the host where Kibana is running. You can install, let's say, an agent, APM agent, to connect through, let's say, high availability clusters, etc. You can install also Heartbeat. This is also good for monitoring HA clusters, etc. So this is very good. You can do many of these things just from here. You don't need to, spend too much time into troubleshooting. And here is the actual thing that the beats that we installed on the same host provides. So we have some metrics from one host. This is the host where Kibana is running, actually, where the beats plugin is collecting stuff. So if we go to the app, you will see the metrics. So this is not the same as logs. So we are monitoring here, okay? This is like a collection of metrics data. And we have some sort of refresh rate here. You can put auto refresh, and if you press here, it will show you like things in real time. This is quite good, and this is the basic, just very basic overview that you have. So logs, you can, if you want to import logs, you need to actually add a log collector. For that you need Logstash also, but everything is gonna be here. So how much memory the VM is using, etc., which process is using the most. So bash, you see Elasticsearch, it's the actual Elasticsearch itself that uses 16% of the entire CPU and half of the memory. That's crazy, right? So yeah, when you run all these things in one host, you're gonna have to provide a little bit better performance machine, of course. Metadata collection, the architecture of the host, the host name, ID, IP address, all these things. This is very useful information. You're keeping a lot of details around here. Cloud availability zone, Nova, it pulls things from the OpenStack. So it's crazy. There's everything on one place. Right. So if you go to default view, manage views, rows per page, there's a lot of things. Just play with this, see what it does. I encourage this kind of things because you can always have a good experience when you try some new things. So add data with Elastic Agent, add data with beats. This is different stuff for security related operations. You can detect anomalies and stuff. This is also very good. You can create more complex structures for monitoring and collection. Then you have like development tools, etc. You have also network monitoring. You can integrate this, with third-party software and firewalls and intrusion detection systems like machine learning-based anomaly detection. You can use Suricat or Snort intrusion detection and prevention systems, firewalls, etc. So this is very big ecosystem which allows you to do a lot of things. So okay, so we're gonna focus on our things here. If we go to overview, FileBeat, let's say you want to install FileBeat and you want to install, collector of Apache logs. For example, we have an Apache server. It's gonna give you, you can also use maps and stuff. This is great. Let's zoom this a little bit. You see, it looks awesome. Right, so now it tells you exactly what you need to do to download the actual file. It provides you a link and to edit the configuration, to enable the module, and to start the FileBeat. So you will have a collector for Apache, and this is explained in all of these modules, and there's pretty much a lot of these. If you go all, and you will see not only log collectors but metrics collectors, security, etc. So there is literally a lot of options here. Let's just see. Fail to retrieve list privileges. Right, so we didn't enable security. Nevertheless, this is something I wanted to show you just quickly, and you can try some of these things. If you're running, I don't know, Apache and MySQL, you can try to collect information this way. Okay, there is Kubernetes metrics. This is integrating very, very well with Kubernetes. You can run Elastic Stack on top of Kubernetes together with your container clusters, and you can collect information from all these containers that you're running there. So that's insanely good. What else is here? Well, there is nothing much because we didn't really provide too many options, and yeah, this is how all of this is installed, so you don't have to, you know, make any special configurations for this local host. But what about the remote one? So let me show you something. Let's clear this mess a little bit. It's cluttered. So we are on the remote host. This is the lamp stack host. So if you say, let's say, curl http, this was again 172.16.0.37, 5601 Kibana, right? It says failed to connect, connection refused. There is a firewall running there. You can do this couple of ways. You can redirect with firewalls and, you know, IP tables or something. I wouldn't suggest that route, although you can do that, but it's a bit cumbersome. Or you can, you know, just work with the configuration files and make this work. So for example, if you want the metric beats on this host to collect information and to send to the remote Elasticsearch and Kibana, what you need to do is to go to the installation directory where the configuration file is, and here you will find a couple of different files. So if you let's list the modules.d quickly, so you can see which modules are included with a metric beat. So this is for metrics collection. So you have Nginx metrics, for example, Munin metrics. I will give you example about Munin. It's a monitoring system when we learn about baculum storage. MySQL, you have this is the one we are using. So yeah, you see Docker, CouchDB for different database type, for Apache, etc. So these are you can enable, for example, the Apache one, and you can try how it works. But collecting metrics is, you know, how the server interacts with the system and the system level information and things like this. You can use FileBeat, you know, to see which stuff are accessed through your web server, which files are, you know, mostly downloaded, things like that. Or you can use PacketBeat to see how much HTTP traffic network. I mean, you can also monitor HTTP traffic using the metric beat, but you can see which IP addresses are connecting mostly, which protocols are used, you know, etc. If you have some multiplexing of protocols. And this is also useful information if you want to monitor for cyber attacks on your web infrastructure, etc. So there's this. And now, if you want to configure something, you're gonna go to the metricbeat.yaml. Let's see. This is the main configuration file. It says what you can do. There is a guide here. You can follow the link. That's why I don't want to, you know, get into big details here, because this is just, you know, collector of data. So it's endless. There's a lot of possibilities you can do here. So for example, if you want to set up Kibana, you're gonna go to this little chunk of data here. It's just uncomment this, and instead of listening on localhost, because Kibana is not installed on this host, you're gonna put it on the adjacent host, right? 172 16.0.37, but it's not gonna connect still. You'll see why. Also Elasticsearch, same host, right? It's not on local host here. 172 16.0.37. Oh, like that, like this. So we save this. Is there something more? Processors, host metadata, cloud metadata, Docker metadata, Kubernetes metadata. These are by default enabled. Monitoring enabled, false. For XPack, there's some logging, but, you know, beats is not supposed, you know, to be for logging. You have Logstash, although they can ship logs. Like there is a special beat for logs. You can, you know, use ODBeat, or also metric beat can ship some logs to Logstash. So that's a good way to have this up and running. But it's not gonna connect now, and this is something that I want you to do. It's not very difficult. It's straightforward, but you need to figure out how. If you say now system or service metric beat restart. Now, if you try to metric beat, let's go like this, setup -e, connection refused again, right? So this is because Elasticsearch and Kibana are not listening on, you know, the main address. You have to set this up somehow to enable them to listen to the exact address, and there is something to do with the security there, etc. So I know you can do this. It's not very complicated. Yeah, this is going to be also demanded from your project too. So make sure that you try a lot of these things, how they work. Last but not least, let's try with Logstash, because for Logstash, you're gonna have to check first the Java runtime environment. So let's put Logstash here, and let's see first Java -- version. Java not found. So I don't know. We should install 8 or 11 maybe. Let's install 11. So let's do it like this, headless. Or let's just do this. I think it's going to install some appropriate version. Doesn't really matter. Let's see. Okay. Actually, I never tried this option. Let's see if it's going to work. It's also a good thing to try. Okay, so while that's installing, to install Logstash, it's the same way. So if we use the same package links, and I mean we already have this imported, so you just need to run the install command, and that's how simple it is. So you don't need to worry about, you know, extracting tars, etc. You can do that also that way. If you go here, we can check this for a second until this is installing there. Let's paste this. Oh, not really. That's wrong link. So what does it say? Like you have all of these components and how they can be installed. Let's say Elasticsearch, for example. You have you can install it on Windows, Linux. You can dep packages, RPM packages, you know, for Red Hat, etc. Then you have the apt-get. This is the way we were installing this. You can use Homebrew. You can put it in a container, etc. So you can use a Helm chart to pull it for Kubernetes clusters. There's a lot of options. So yeah, and this is very, very well explained here. So if you go on the Elastic website, you'll find a very, very extensive documentation. And this is priceless, because bad documentation is going to be the difference between your ability to do something and not. But in this case, the documentation is great, and that's very, very good news. Okay, let's go back to this. This is done. And yeah, now we're just gonna do apt update and install Logstash. So yeah, this will install Logstash. But yeah, just installing the Logstash, it's not gonna do anything special, because you won't be able to to do anything. It's not gonna show up in Kibana or anywhere else. You're gonna have to do it yourself a little bit. So let's see what we can do. Actually, let me think about this. Right. Okay, so this is create a system startup script for Logstash. That's very good, because sometimes it doesn't create a system startup. I put this also in the file. If you install this on some other operating system that doesn't have systemd, then you're gonna have to run this command, for example, for metric beat or for Logstash or for anything, in order to enable it to run on boot. So if your VM reboots, the service can be down. So just in case, you can do something like this. All right, let's see. Actually, let's open the Kibana dashboard for a second. I don't think it changed anything here. because yeah, Logstash comes. You need to configure this manually. Add data. As I said before, you can do this way, but you can also upload a file. Let's dismiss this here for a second. Monitor the stack. This is what we already have. Setup monitoring with metric beat, let's say, for example. This is how you can install metric beat. So you have all your hosts connecting to the Elasticstack, and this is the local host actually. So if you say, I want to monitor this thing, like ourselves, that's what I mentioned in the previous video. There is an option to monitor the monitoring itself, the log collection system. So you can install metric beat for this purpose. And you can have a couple of nodes, and this is represented here, and this is very good. So this is when you have, let's say, a cluster of Elasticsearch. If you have one node like this, it doesn't really make sense, but if you have high availability, it's good to know if some node gets offline, so you can fix it, because you don't really want 2 from 3 nodes to get offline. I mean, that's the idea behind high availability, to have at least 3 nodes running, so you can have some sort of resiliency and fault tolerance. But that's a different story. We're not going to get there. That's a more complicated scenario, so we're not installing that. So Kibana's here, everything's on a single place. You should experiment with this and see how it works. In the meantime, let's try something with Logstash actually. So okay, we can use, let's say, FileBeat to send to Logstash, but this can be quite a big example, so I don't want to get into big details about all of this, because you have some of these details into a presentation and you're gonna do it yourself. So I don't want to make this a little bit too complicated for what already it is, because I'll just try to make this as simple as possible. So let's try something like this. Change directory to etc Logstash. So here you have a Logstash sample .conf, and here you can see how Logstash parses outputs. It's very similar to how we did with Terraform. It creates a JSON output which you can access with keys and values. It says that the Elasticsearch is on localhost, of course, and we don't have user or anything. So this is just how you make it work outside the box. So this is working. So if you send some data to Logstash, like logs, it's gonna send it to Elasticsearch and it's gonna be represented in Kibana. So this is something I want you to do, and to come to me with questions, what needs to be done, because we can't really cover this in a video that's gonna be half an hour. It's gonna take a very long time. So if you have anything to ask about this, we will be available online. So just please let us know if you have any specific questions about this. I will provide you the slides that give you examples how you can add some stuff into into Logstash, so you can ship some data and represent this. So yeah, let me think if I have something additional else to show you here. We showed the beats, we showed the Kibana, so I think that should be it. There is nothing else. Right. I will give you also some links into the examples, what you can do with Logstash. For example, you can read from Twitter feeds, let's say. That's gonna be a very cool example if you want to try it. And then you can configure FileBeat to send log lines to Logstash. So this is, very classical example. It's not something I can do right now at the moment. It's gonna take longer, but I will send you. This is represented on the Elasticsearch website. It's a classical example, something more similar. So that should be it for today. Please let us know if you have any questions, and we'll be around to answer and to help you with all these things. I will show some additional stuff if you want to see that. Not in this video, but there is a separate video for Ansible and Terraform, and we're deploying hybrid infrastructure where we have the Elastic Stack in a clustered mode in AWS cloud, which is collecting logs and monitoring information from OpenStack. So we have hybrid infrastructure. So that's a great example for you to try as well if you have the time. And it belongs to the configuration management lectures. In any case, yes, this should be it, and see you next time.